The Dominion War was one of Starfleet's worst times. Many Federation starships and those of the Federation Alliance and Breen-Dominon Alliance were lost in many battles throughout the Alpha and Beta Quadrants. However, while we spent plenty of time looking at the likes of the Defiant-class, Excelsior-class, and even the cannon fodder Miranda-class, it's time we shed some light on the Dominion starships. When we first properly encountered the Dominion, we knew they meant business. Jem'Hadar fighters were swift and brutal in their initial attack on a Starfleet vessel, this being the destruction of the Galaxy-class USS Odyssey. While we'll talk about the common Jem'Hadar fighters another day, today we want to focus on the common sightings of the Jem'Hadar Battlecruiser. No, not the one that appeared in Star Trek Deep Space Nine's Valiant episode. That is actually a battleship. We're talking about the Battlecruiser. It appeared in many episodes of DS9 as a primary warship for the Dominion forces, one that complemented the frequent sightings of the Jem'Hadar bug fighters, a term coined by many. Welcome to Trek Central, I'm your host Captain Jack, and let's get into it. Before we warp into this video, if you want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore, and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media for daily updates on the Star Trek universe. Let me start this video with a question. If you were taking part in the Dominion War, which ship would you command? An Excelsior, perhaps a Galaxy, or you could even tempt fate and fly a Miranda-class? Comment down below, I'm curious. As always, please let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, because if you're talking about Star Trek, then we want to hear about it. Make sure to leave some suggestions for myself and Lieutenant Commander Adam and the crew here at Trek Central for what we should do next. Okay, engage. Starting things off, we have the technical details of the Jem'Hadar Battlecruiser. Listed as a heavy cruiser, it was around 639.75 meters long, with a wingspan of 568.44 meters. This vessel was a major threat to the Federation during the Dominion War. With a top speed of warp 9.6, at least 5 torpedo launchers, 4-phase Polaron beams, and 3 large Polaron beams, and eventually an energy-dampening weapon from the Breen. The battlecruiser was designed to be tough, pack a punch, and survive for the glory of the Dominion. For comparison, the Galaxy-class starship of the same era had 7 phaser arrays and a couple of torpedo launchers. The same Galaxy-class but got destroyed by 3 Jem'Hadar fighters. The primary forward weapon of the cruiser was a large launcher that sat under the vessel. It was used to fire single torpedoes, but could do multiple volleys and had a single wide sweeping arc. The Polaron beam-based weapons also had wide arcs, with forward emitters managing to fire up and back, as seen as the Defiant leaves Deep Space Nine in one of the many episodes. The beam itself was also capable of piercing Starfleet shields, firing directly on hull, causing immense damage, as seen in the Jem'Hadar. Eventually, the Federation did gain some resistance to the weapon, but more than a few shots continued to overwhelm the shields if concentrated on one target, as seen in the Deep Space Nine episode A Call to Arms, when Dukat orders his fleet to fire on a single section of Deep Space Nine, breaking the shields apart. Initially built by the founders to defend their borders and manned by the Jem'Hadar, the battlecruiser could house at least 2,500 soldiers, which was commanded by one Vorta and the Jem'Hadar first. The vessel was officially the more conventional backbone of the Dominion fleet. With its mid-range firepower, the vessel was considered a viable threat. Even one was considered a major threat to Deep Space Nine, a station twice its size. It made up a large portion of the invasion fleet during the first battle of Deep Space Nine and further skirmishes during the war. The battlecruiser was the main line of defense, attack, and sometimes diplomatic missions. One was even the leading crews of Gul Dukat and Vorta Wayun, used during most of Season 5 of Deep Space Nine and the invasion from the season final. The vessel itself was barren compared to their Federation and even Cardassian counterpart, with minimal features and lack of amenities. The vessel was literally a bridge with a cargo bay that held troops. The bridge had no seats and no view screen. It was deemed unnecessary as the Jem'Hadar obeyed orders and did not need to see. The Vorta commander and the first of that vessel did, however, would wear shoulder-mounted portable view screens, which allowed for them to see through the bulkhead. Dukat, Damar, Wayun, Sisko, and Gag all wore one of these at one point. However, Sisko took the brunt of the effects given off by the device, as he was given constant headaches. The vessel had some rooms on board, mainly for the Vorta to conference in, and a room dedicated solely to violent or passive interrogation. The room was visited by Jake and Nog during In the Cars, and later by Dr. Bashir when Sloan tried to convince him he was a Dominion spy. Later in the war, more Dominion battlecruisers were seen taking part in the final engagement, the Battle of Cardassia. They orbited Cardassia, ready for one final stand against the combined Federation, Romulan, and Klingon fleets. Oh, and some Cardassians. These vessels would have likely managed to break the Federation lines, costing millions of lives, had Odo not prevented the war from continuing. Ultimately, the Jem'Hadar battlecruiser was an example of a Gamma Quadrant state of affairs. While the battleship was an example of the Dominion's commitment to a war effort in the Alpha Quadrant, without any major reinforcements, the Dominion had to rely on its own ingenuity, as this showed in the creation of a large, more formidable battleship. First revealed on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, the Dominion Battlecruiser made its grand appearance in Season 5, Episode 14, In Purgatory's Shadow. It was part of a large wave of Dominion ships gathered in a large nebula inside Dominion space. The fleet was discovered by just plain Simple Garrick and Mr. Worf, who had journeyed out to find the possible lost survivors of the combined Cardassian and Romulan fleets that bombarded the Founder's homeworld in Season 3, but Dyer's cast. The fleet attacked their runabout, strangely keeping it in one piece, and then promptly transferred Worf and Garrick to internment Camp 371. The large Dominion fleet heads for the Alpha Quadrant, destroying the listening post on its way. Eventually, they pass through the wormhole, as DS9 and her crew fail to close it after receiving a scrambled warning from Worf and Garrick. This fleet heads for Cardassia, as Dukat slyly reveals that the Cardassians have joined the Dominion.
But I think you misunderstand me. I'm not attacking the Dominion fleet. I'm joining it.
As the fleet warps away, all the crew on Deep Space Nine can do is wait. This is with Dukat revealing that all Klingons and Maquis in the Cardassian space will be killed. A fleet of Klingon vessels arrives at Deep Space Nine, with the ships being forced back by the superior Dominion vessels, matching Vulture-class and Negrav-class vessels. While Bashir, Martok, Garrick and Worf attempt to survive and escape the camp, Sisko and Gowron re-sign the Khitomer Accords, and Dukat threatens to take back all things Cardassian, including the station. After trying to lure a combined Starfleet, Klingon and Romulan fleet to Deep Space Nine, with an imposter Bashir attempting to collapse Bajor's sun into a supernova, Dukat once more threatens to return to the station. A Dominion battlecruiser acts as the command cruiser and flagship for Weyoun and Dukat, returning to the station several times. This vessel was seen docked while Dukat tried to convince Tekli Kamor to return home to Cardassia after he defected to Deep Space Nine to provide information against Cardassia and her new allies. Another cruise was seen again when Jake Sisko and Nog tried to gain a special baseball card for Captain Sisko. During this, Weyoun was at Deep Space Nine to sign a non-aggression pact with Bajor, and transported them aboard to ask about the connection to Dr. Geiger. They tried to tell him the truth and eventually told an elaborate lie, which Weyoun did not believe and released them based on their previous story. The next time a battlecruiser is seen is during the assault on Deep Space Nine. Several are used in combined fleets of Gala-class, Hideki-class, and Jem'Hadar fighters. Dukat, Weyoun, and Damar used one as their flagship, leading the primary assault on Deep Space Nine, while the crew puts up a valiant fight to defend the station, with the minefield being installed to keep Dominion forces out of the quadrant. Eventually, the crew must leave to ensure Bajor's safety and their chance to fight another day. During the start of Season 6, several battlecruisers are seen protecting Deep Space Nine, while one primarily remains docked in one of the lower pylons. When Sisko and the Defiant return to Deep Space Nine for the second battle, Dukat has brought down the minefield, forcing Sisko and his crew to face thousands of cruisers and fighters alone. In the wormhole, with the help of the Prophets, these ships are dispersed, returning in Star Trek Online to attack Deep Space Nine again. That's actually a fun mission in DS9. If it's still available, go play it. I don't know if it is though, so, good luck. As Season 6 progresses and the war worsens, the Jem'Hadar battlecruiser continues to fight valiantly, but eventually, the Dominion decides it's time to turn the tide. With no reinforcements, and the Alpha Jem'Hadar now being created for outclass Gamma Jem'Hadar, they design and build new ships, a larger ship, and this being the battleship. We'll cover the Dominion battleship in another video. You might agree, the bigger brother of the battlecruiser is worthy of a full video for its attention, but to give you a glimpse, this battleship featured in the Deep Space Nine episode, Valiant. The ship, while not as common as the Jem'Hadar battlecruiser, could still be seen making up various fleets. Looking at the Dominion fleet around Cardassia during the final battle, we can see these ships. Following the Treaty of Bajor, the Dominion forces returned to the Gamma Quadrant. As such, we've not seen a Jem'Hadar battlecruiser or battleship since Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Star Trek Picard featured LCAR displays of the ships. In Star Trek Online, their own story showed the Dominion updated their battlecruiser design with the turn of the 25th century. So, some behind the scenes information for all of you. As Deep Space Nine moved gradually towards an all-out war between the Federation and the Dominion, it was decided that a more menacing ship was required for a war footing. While the Jem'Hadar fighter had been a valiant vessel, destroying a Galaxy-class starship, it became more evident that a larger vessel would be needed to build out the Dominion fleet, one that generally emphasized the threat the Dominion posed. Initially, the tiny bug-like Dominion fighter had been designed by Jim Martin, a production illustrator. However, he had unfortunately left the show by the time a new designer was required. The task of the new Jem'Hadar cruiser came down to John Eves. John Eves worked as a student model maker on Star Trek's The Final Frontier and had worked with the franchise since the late 1980s. This would be the second ship Eves had ever designed, and while he was mindful of a previous smaller fighter, he wanted to make sure the new ship, while maintaining the design language, was unique enough to carry itself. For inspiration, Eves took to old military jet fighters, particularly the Douglas A4 Skyhawk. He mostly took design aspects from the cruciform style tail and the low-mounted delta wing, which influenced the elevated structure of the rear. He saw the larger the structures of the warp engines, while the smaller ones would be the impulse engines and thrusters. An interesting fact, which this writer did not know, is that the larger sweeping shapes on the bottom of the wings were not actually warp nacelles, they were fuel storage pods. According to John Eves, the original design of a Jem'Hadar cruiser was meant for potentially another alien species. Yet when Dan Curry saw it, he decided that this was a design choice for the Jem'Hadar. He thinks this may be down to Curry having a thing for knives and blades, which would make sense as he did design the Klingon bat'leth. When designing the ship, John Eves reduced 3/4 design. He felt this was the fastest way to showcase the new design, and this showed as the design was quickly approved. Eves was then tasked with designing more plans of the vessel, focusing on the fore, aft, side, ventral, and dorsal views. This was so the special effects house, Vision Art, could create a CG model while Don Pennington built the physical model. Unlike some ships in Deep Space Nine, the Dominion cruiser was built from fiberglass, resulting in a 48-inch by 48-inch model weighing a ton. The model required 3 or 4 people to lift it and turn it for all the shots required. While it was a beautiful model, the production crew did end up affectionately calling it the Lead-Hadar. This vessel marked the penultimate physical model to be built, and it appeared in the season 5 episodes In Purgatory's Shadow, and then again in Sacrifice of the Angels as stock footage. The CGI model of the Battlecruiser also appeared in season 5's In Purgatory's Shadow, several of which pursued Garak and Worf's runabout. Surprisingly, there were actually 2 models of the Battlecruiser for CGI, which led many to believe there were 2 variations of the ship. Unfortunately, that was not the case. The CG model had slightly steeper wings, which was due to a misinterpretation of John Eves' sketch. A new CG model was created by Foundation Imaging, in which they had access to the physical model when building the CG one. This was often the perfect match between CG model and model starships. The vessel blended the perfect aesthetics between menacing and sleek, making it the menacing yet alluring enemy to go head to head with the Federation. When designing the third Jem'Hadar ship, the battleship, it was decided that John Eves would be brought back. The episode of the Valiant required the vessel to fly so close to the battleship it scraped off her paint. However, the Jem'Hadar cruiser wouldn't stand up to that kind of close-up shot, so a new design was required. It needed to be larger, more detailed, and perfect for close-up shots. Basing his design off of the previous cruiser before it, Eves continued the sharper angle heritage. He at first had the idea that the small bug-like Jem'Hadar fighters would be docked on the sides of the craft. However, this idea was too complicated and unfortunately wasn't used. This is a shame, as bugs were some of the original inspiration for the fighter, and the team saw the battleship as a spider with babies on its back. Eventually, Eves adopted a sleeker, bigger, and more aggressive version of the cruiser. It was a good place to start, exaggerating what he had already designed. He then made the ship bulkier, flatter, and added a negative space for the Valiant to fly through, even adding a bridge-like detail that the Valiant could fly under to give a sense of scale. Due to his design leaning heavily on the previous, he didn't need to do many sketches, just taking inspiration from World War II naval ships, adding blade-like features, and then adding any details for production required. The final details were supplied by Digital Muse, who built the final CG vessel. Like the cruiser it was based on, the warship was imposing, huge, and threatening. But again, we'll tell you more about that in a dedicated video on the Jem'Hadar battleship. So, what do you think of a Jem'Hadar battlecruiser? Let me leave you with another question if you haven't answered my first one, but you can also answer this one. As a Star Trek fan, which would you instead command? A battlecruiser or the bigger and tougher battleship? Comment down below. So, what do you think of a ship? Do let me know what you think of it. I particularly like these battlecruisers in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. They look amazing. I'm not too keen on the battleship. Both are nice though. If you want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore, and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media or join our community Discord server. For now, I've been Jack, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Live long and prosper, my friends. Goodbye.